Mr. Chairman. Ms. Sabatino, when you talked about the number of K-9 units that you have, were those the K-9 units that are in OFO or the entire CBP?
These are specific to the Office of Field Operations.
How many K-9 units are in CBP, if you know?
I don't have that number, sir. I can get back to you on that.
You guys use dogs very effectively. I mean, I've seen lots of demonstrations been done. San Isidro is where we saw that. I was with the chairman. We saw the gas. That was fascinating. But they don't have anywhere near the same number of K-9 units in CBP to deal with between ports of entry, do they?
I would have to defer to my colleagues on the Border Patrol, sir.
You know it's true. Okay, see, density meters, density readers, you guys have those at the ports of entries, right?
We do employ a number of small handheld technology.
I've seen them at Mariposa, as well as at San Isidro, and as well as in other ports of entry as well. In other words, you have great equipment at the ports of entry that are essentially a force multiplier, right?
We have, yes, absolutely. We have a number of tools.
We don't have those same tools between the ports of entry because we don't see the same type of border crosser between the ports of entry, right?
You know, sir, I can speak to what happens at the ports of entry.
Okay, very good.
Technology there.
Very good. Do any of your officers ever provide parole to those who illegally enter the country through ports of entry?
We have certainly
360,000 people got parole last year. How many came through ports of entry?
I would have to get the breakdown of that number. I can share with you certainly the last 4 months of encounters.
What is that?
We had.
How many got parole?
Through our programs, I apologize, sir.
Well, while you're looking, I'm going to go to Mr. Salisbury. Mr. Salisbury, HSI is embedded into ICE, correct?
Yes, we're directed under ICE.
Right. You guys don't remove individuals who have deportation orders, is that correct? That's not HSI's responsibility.
That's correct. HSI is a criminal enforcement arm of the
right. So ICE, when the director said and the president said we're going to have a 100-day moratorium on deportations, even though you had 1.2 million people who had due process and deportation orders, that would be a countermand to the law. But you guys didn't receive that because that's not what you do.
Homeland Security Investigations is only focused on
you don't do that. So you didn't receive that order to violate the law. You didn't receive that, right?
HSI solely proceeds with.
So you didn't receive that order.
Correct.
There, it's that simple. Back to you, ma'am, Ms. Sabatino.
Apologies, sir. So for the last 4 months in October, we saw 26,505, November 27,651, December 30,428, and January 28,150.
So averaging between 26 and 30,000 roughly for the last 4 months. 360,000 last year. CBP 1's going to provide to 4 nations ostensibly up to 360,000 additional parolees through ports of entry. Secretary Mayorkas, who is in both of your direct chain of command, has testified before Congress that paroles to be granted on a single individual case-by-case basis. I've read the law. That's what it says. Granting 30,000 a month, is that a single case-by-case basis?
Well, I think we do evaluate, and our CBP officers interview all of these individuals that come across, and there are certainly instances where they can be detained. So
prior to the Biden administration, there had never been more than 24 or so parole grants in a year.
I would have to go back and...
No, I'm telling you, that's the facts. That's the testimony we've had previously, multiple hearings.
I think depending on the circumstances, there could certainly be more examples where parole has been utilized.
More than 24 in a year?
Yes.
Okay. I'd love to see that, because our testimony that we've received repeatedly is that it's been about 24 have been kind of the high, normally about 12 to 15, very individualized basis. This administration, however, is now going up to 300,000, which sounds like a generic, that sounds pretty generic to me. That doesn't sound like an individual case-by-case basis. So when we look at force multipliers, if you really want to get to the force multiplier, and this doesn't go to you, Mr. Salisbury, or maybe even you, Ms. Sabatino, because you said you didn't receive these, but I think the parole issue is a problem. How about enforcing the law? You enforce the law, that's your best force multiplier. That would include things like removals of 1.2, now up to about 1.5 million people who've had due process and removal orders. With that, I yield back.